Shorty won 10K, but she's not even worth it in Naira. Central C just recently said this on a song with Nems, and that shit was mad funny because 10,000 Naira is only £5, which is what UK niggas follow. But I think it's also a good example to explain fiat currency, which is basically when our currency is backed by the government and its price point fluctuates around other international currencies, which basically means that your currency isn't the same in every country. Its value differs amongst different countries. And we used to follow some shit called the gold standard before we start fucking with fiat currency, but gold is still important even though we don't follow the gold standard anymore. And the reason why is a perfect example of yesterday and today. Yesterday, gold futures just hit a new price point of $3,177 because it's seen as something called a safe haven asset. And niggas is copping this safe haven asset because Trump is announcing something called Liberation Day today, this Wednesday, which is basically reciprocal tariffs that he's going to levy against other countries, right? And basically, a safe haven asset is something you're going to invest in when you're going into uncertain economic times. So think about it as like a zombie apocalypse when niggas ask you, what's the top 3 things that, for me, you're going to want if you can only have 3 things during this apocalypse? You're not going to want a Mary's or Dior slides. You're going to want a fucking gun to boom niggas when they fucking wildin'. You want to have canned goods for food and shit, and you want to have a V to get sturdy, some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? But to get a deeper understanding of gold and why it's important, I'm going to explain the history of gold, right? So the gold standard is when a country's currency is backed by a fixed price point of gold, and the country has a large reserve of gold in somewhere in a safe. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why gold is sturdy is because it's a scarce resource, so you can't just fucking create it out of thin dust. It gotta be mined. But that's also one of the downfalls of gold standard back then, because it was hard for niggas like the Fed to do monetary policy, because they can't just credit a bank institution account with bread and create debt to do monetary policy to help the economy. Additionally, the Bretton Woods Agreement is basically some shit that happened after World War II. And basically, because all of these countries, had reparations and shit like that, during the Bretton Woods Agreement, they agreed that their currency would be relative around the US dollar, right? And at the time, the US dollar was equivalent to 35 cash per ounce. So when all of these countries started cashing out, for their reparations, they were taking out gold directly from the US reserves. And the U.S. Reserve had 75% of gold at this time. So, after a while, all that shit depleted and it went ghost like the fucking Avatar, Last Airbender.